Right. I think we are back. And I could possibly share the presentation maybe. Yes. Okay. So hello everyone. I think we're back for the final session that we'll see some of us trying to guide you through what is the final part, the final result of the project, which was an effort made in the last 3 months of the project, where we try to build what we call the roadmaps, no? Because we have seen the SMARTI vision, we've seen the prototypes or some of the technologies that might be included in the SMARTI, but now we would like to draw what are the next steps to arrive to a SMARTI possibly in 2030 or more or less in that date. No, just to give an idea on the next step for the next 10 years. And to show you this, I would like to invite the member of the panel. So Emmanuel Chailleux, that I see there. Hello, Emmanuel. Henry Nkwanga. Henry, apologies if I don't spell your surname correctly. I always have some issue, but should be okay. Just let me notice. I'm noticing that you both, Emmanuel and Henry, have your microphone off, and then we have Monsieur Pierre Hornych.
Hello.
Pierre, thanks for being here.
Yes.
And possibly at a certain point there will be also Nicholas Hautiere, which wasn't connected because he was busy with something else. Nicholas is a busy man, but possibly will join during the meeting. And I'm not sure whether Philippe is still there. Yes. Philippe, if you want to join also, it would be great. So if you can possibly activate your microphone and if you have a webcam.
Yes, hello, Davide. I'm still here, but I will have to go in 5 minutes because I have another meeting.
All right.
Yes, sorry.
I don't think, well, you can eventually join or not, I understand. So thanks for being here. Really, what we would like to do now is to talk about these roadmaps, possibly going one by one, and having some comments from the member of the panel. So just to summarize what we have seen before, for us, a smart transport infrastructure, it's an infrastructure that is conceived, designed, and managed, having the vision of adding some feature to the infrastructure that in 2022 for us are related to sustainability, multifunctional infrastructure, automated and resilient, but with the time is something that can be enriched. The point is to have this elegant solution that could allow us to cope with the main challenges of our time. And so we thought about making roadmaps towards sustainable transport infrastructure. And first of all, we'd like just to give you a little hint of what we put in our video to give an idea of what we think is a sustainable transport infrastructure.
In our vision, SMARTI
Can you hear it?
Sustainable
transport infrastructure will be designed to last, maximising the reuse of secondary material, improving durability, and minimising the impact on the planet.
So a very quick glance of the pillar, and this is where we came from, which we think are the main direction to arrive to sustainable transport infrastructure. And on this basis, we thought about creating this summary, where we think that the main goals towards a sustainable transport infrastructure are actually maximizing recycling, minimizing the impact, and designing an infrastructure that is designed to last. And for each of the roadmap, you will see we will have some main reason to achieve this goal, as well as the state of the art, basically, and the stepping stones towards our vision for a sustainable transport infrastructure. I will just introduce, for instance, this point, and then I will ask Manuel, in particular, to possibly give us his opinion. So before telling you mine, I think it's good, Manuel.
Yes.
You want to underline anything on this roadmap? Is something that
Yes. I would like to underline something. We have made several projects dealing with pavement, especially on material for pavement, and often we have done the life cycle analysis. And Davide, you perfectly know this type of analysis. And each time we are doing this type of analysis, we found that what it is very important is the use of non-renewable material. Of course, in the pavement industry, in the transport infrastructure, we mainly use aggregate from quarry and bitumen from petroleum oil industry. So if we want to go toward a more sustainable world, we need to maximize recycling. It is the first goal of this roadmap. It means that the quarry of the future, especially in mature networks, will be the road itself. But also the road itself, but also including the use of secondary material, like it could be the case with tire rubbers. For example, we need to think about it. We have to reduce the consumption of non-renewable materials. It is the case for bitumen, where we try to use the old bitumen on the old road, on the aggregate, but also we want to use material coming from other type of resource, like biomass, which is a renewable type of material. And the main advantage of using material from biomass is we store carbon for a very long period in the road. And we will have a challenge for the next years, is to take the biomass which is used at the moment to make energy, so to put CO2 in atmosphere, to use this biomass for pavement in order to store CO2. It's the main advantage of using things from biomass.
So, Emmanuel, if I can read through your lines, I think you are rightly connecting the maximizing recycling that can be driven, guided by sustainability assessments, basically. So
yes, of course.
we need to maximize as much as we can, but we need to understand how much we impact. Correct?
Yes.
Yes.
But we have to keep
what we're trying to develop, and in order to do that, we thought about having some important stepping stones. Were you mentioning something, Manuel?
No. Continue.
Okay. And very important one is that we engineer, transport infrastructure engineer, we should really work very closely with those working with something that is not science yet, at least as I said, but it's a practice that is becoming so, which is sustainability assessment. So taking any product and any process, looking at the life cycle and assessing for each phase of their life cycle what are their emissions, considering several indicators. And that's why each producer or each manager, each contractor should provide a product or a process that has a kind of a label that give us what are the impacts of what they propose. And this is what we called sustainable product declarations. Okay, so at the moment we have environmental product declarations, which are based on indicators related to the environmental impact. CO2, is one of those. But we think that whatever we do has to be assessed with a procedure that is based on indicators that considers the environment as a first, that's for sure. But then they consider also the society and the economy where the infrastructure are developed. So each product should come with a sustainable product declaration. This is one of the main really achievement that we would like the industry to have in 2030, and are suggesting some stepping stones.
Exactly.
Another really important one, which for us, I think a lot of people, and I would like to ask also the other components of the panel, not only Manuel, it's designing to last, meaning that of course we want to increase the sustainability, but how much exactly we are designing for. So what is durability? How can we assess durability of a component? And what do you think is something important that we have to consider or to change in what we do now, so that we can guarantee a certain durability of a road pavement, for instance?
Yes, maybe I can react on that.
Yeah, Pierre, please.
You said that it's important to do life cycle assessment to introduce new materials, but it's as important to assess their durability, because these new materials, we have no long-term experience with them. And I think we really need to introduce perhaps more efficient methods, more efficient approaches to assess the durability. One question is the aging, maybe the chemical or atmospherical effects and the aging, and the other is the durability under traffic, which can be studied using, for example, accelerated testing, or also new tests, because I think some of our tests, like the fatigue test, do not look at the properties in all the temperature conditions and all the loading conditions. So maybe we need to promote this. We need to improve our test methods to assess durability. And another thing, I think we have to look more at the performance of existing roads, because I think the durability is often relatively different from the design life. We see, for example, on motorways sometimes that the pavements last much longer than their initial design life. And I think there is also a lot to learn from feedback from performance of existing pavements or existing roads to improve our prediction of the design life or of the residual life, and to really assess the real life. And I think that in the life cycle assessment, it's also extremely important, because in the life cycle assessment you take into account the life of the infrastructure. So if we can predict it better, we will have also better life cycle assessments.
Exactly, Pierre. Exactly, and that's why I think that the concept of live labs, no, that we were trying to discuss at the conference a few days ago, and also now, I think can really help in terms of assessing durability as well. To fine-tune models that are created with APTs, but possibly to give more precise information on that specific part of the planet. Well, I will stop the discussion on sustainable pillar here, and I will welcome Nicolas, which is really on time. Nicolas, welcome. Thanks for being here. I know you are quite busy. Your microphone is off, Nicolas, just for you to know. So this is one of the roadmap. Our aim is to publish this in the guidelines, but we would like also to publish on a paper. And yes, we can hear you, Nicolas.
Okay.
And so if you would like to have the guidelines, please just send us an email. You can send me an email. Other point, Nicolas, maybe if you can mute your microphone at the moment, because there is some noise. Perfect. So the other pillar, it's about multifunctional transport infrastructure. And let's have a quick glance of what we need for it.
In our vision, SMARTI will be multifunctional. Infrastructure will be designed not only for transport, conceived to optimize land use and equipped to create energy, not only to consume it. For example, multifunctional infrastructure will sustain themselves by harvesting energy from solar light and vehicles passing by.
Multifunctional transport infrastructure are not only for transport. We actually would like to use this piece of planet Earth with some other meaningful uses. And we built a roadmap for that. And I think really the best person to talk about it is Nicolas, who was one of the main authors of that. So Nicolas, just to put you on track, okay? We are basically looking a general glance at the roadmap and trying to underline what are the main concepts behind it. So
yes.
An overview from yourself would be great.
Yes, very happy to be with you. Sorry, I am in bad conditions to discuss with you, but very strategic issues. These three different goals, in fact, that with multifunctional transport infrastructure. The first very objective or strategic or vision should be that we should be able to use transportation infrastructure to improve transport and the way and to reduce externalities by transport infrastructure. So this is a first strategic objective. The other one is if we do that, we could also optimize the land use thanks to an integrated policy, thanks to the transport infrastructure. So we could minimize the land use by, for example, energy harvesting. That's the second one. This may be more a strategic objective for cities, for cities and dense areas. And the third pillar or the third vision should be, could we use locally the energy, for example, for decarbonized transport, so or transport or building. So are we able to produce energy by infrastructure and inject it in the grid, for example, to recharge vehicle and so on. So this is the three way we think we should progress toward 2030. So I hope to be clear. It's not easy to summarize, but thank you.
Nicolas, thank you so much. So we want infrastructure that actually allows us to get energy out of them, so that we can use it to create energy. And we do think is the most immediate multifunctional feature that we can provide to the infrastructure. Do you reckon that we can have some other uses for infrastructure?
Yes, it should be so energy is one way, but we could imagine other uses that are outside that. It could be a way to, for example, transport other things that people and goods, for example, move biodiversity. So, for example, animals, trees, biodiversity, they suffer from climate change. And in fact, the verges of infrastructure, in fact, motorways for biodiversity to adapt to climate change. So being able to improve the way infrastructure are designed in terms of land management could be a solution for other purposes like biodiversity. And the side effect, if we could improve biodiversity along roads, along transport infrastructure, it is in fact a carbon sink. So we can store CO2 along the infrastructure, in the infrastructure, by better management of the earth, of the materials, of the vegetal materials, in fact, along the infrastructure. This is two examples that we on which we are still working at the moment.
Well, I'm sure we could continue over and over. I think here the message here is that we want to optimize the use of planet Earth so that we can take advantage of what is already used a lot, because infrastructure really have a big impact in our planet. Not for transport only, to use it not for transport only, but for other uses. Nicolas, thank you so much. Just for the sake of time, I'm not asking other panel members if they have something on it, unless there is some urgent remark. And that will go towards
Davide.
Yes.
I just want to add something that the multifunctionality and the sustainability are linked together.
Oh yeah.
Of course, yes, yes, yeah. Of course. Because making a positive energy pavement, it's good for the planet. It means if you can harvest more energy than you have used for the construction, it's a positive impact.
Yeah,
for example.
And in fact, you can, if you improve biodiversity, it makes you more biosources for sustainability also.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't agree more. And that's why I like to call smart transport infrastructure as those infrastructure engineered with smart solutions for sustainable infrastructure. At the end of the day, we want something that lasts as much as possible and impacts as less as possible. Thanks, Emmanuel. Thanks again, Nicolas. If anyone else doesn't have any other remark, I'll go to the next pillar and let's discover what we think is an automated transport infrastructure.
In our vision, SMARTI will be automated. Transport infrastructure will be built with intelligent sensing systems, allowing them to self-monitor their conditions and proactively communicate to asset managers and users.
Well, we've seen in the second session how we are trying to consider smart road pavement in particular, but also railways. And thanks to some further work with Pierre in particular, we actually brainstormed and we went a little bit further. And in particular was Pierre Chiara Mini, which is here connected. She's like a shadow, but she's very much present. And myself, we went and developed this roadmap. Pierre, do you want to underline something? Give us an overview.
Yes, maybe I can say something about this topic. I think that we are seeing an incredible progress in instrumentation and information technologies. And this is extremely interesting for improving the use of our infrastructures and also the monitoring and asset management of our infrastructures. And I think that all this potential is not fully used now. It's only starting. And I think there are lots of interesting projects in this area, but probably we are still not exploiting fully the potential of all these technologies. And I think one big area of progress is the communication between vehicles and infrastructures. I think that we can collect by using relatively simple transducers a lot of information on the state of the infrastructure, frost, water, dangerous spots, traffic jams, I don't know, many things like that could be transmitted to vehicles in real time to improve driving and to improve the safety of road users. And I think that this will come in the next year, but I think that there is really a big area of progress and of exciting projects that can be done in this field. So that's one thing, and the other one is asset management. I think that there is also an enormous potential with transducers and monitoring methods to understand better the performance of our infrastructures and take it into account in models for predicting their design life and also models for predicting deterioration and needs of reinforcement of or maintenance. For this instrumentation, I think that the big challenge is still to reduce the cost, because now we have some experiments going on with classical transducers, and we see that if you want to do, I'm speaking mostly of continuous monitoring. Today, if you want to do continuous monitoring, the cost is still relatively high. If you use classical transducers and classical data acquisition systems and transmission of the data. And I think that for these technologies to be deployed largely, we need really to think of low-cost systems. And for example, one very interesting presentation was the one of the project with Nizar, who is trying to find very low-cost transducers by thinking a little differently. Because in some cases, maybe we don't need to instrument to monitor exactly the performance of the whole pavement section and to monitor the variation of modulus of all the layers. Maybe we need only to detect some overall change in the performance. And maybe by thinking differently and by using transducers like the one he proposed, who gives only an idea of the cumulated strains experienced by the pavement, we can lower the cost and we can find new interesting solutions. I also believe a lot in possibilities of fiber optics sensors. I think they are still progressing a lot. A few years ago, it was not possible to make high quality measurements. It was possible to make measurements over long distances, but they were not very high quality. But now the performance is increasing enormously. We are doing some new tests, and we see that there is also a lot of potential for instrumentation with optical fibers. So that are some ideas. And I think there is also a need to standardize all that, or to make it interoperable, because it's one thing to develop a system that one researcher can use, and it's another thing to develop systems which can be implemented on a large scale, used by road owners, and also maybe if we speak of communication with vehicles, used by different car manufacturers. So I think there is a need to experiment technologies, and then also to think of interoperability to be able to use them on a larger scale. So that's some of the challenges. And I think that in the period, like in the next 10 years, we will see very large progress in this area. We predicted some, or we proposed some vision for 2030, but I think that maybe we will see much more than what we are predicting, because the progress is very quick in this area.
Yeah, probably one pillar will go faster than the other, but we try to stimulate and be provocatory. Thanks, Pierre. Thanks a lot. I personally completely agree with what you said. I would not add, but possibly underline that the low cost is the key. Low cost and low burden of all this data analysis is the key to then give a feedback to infrastructure and make them adaptable. Again, connection with resilience, as we did earlier on. And another point that we didn't actually address in SMARTI, but you mentioned as well, which is the second goal, the more intuitive use. We really now will have a lot of opportunities and exciting projects to actually try to communicate directly with the user, vehicles, or whoever is using the infrastructure. And I think that is the next challenge that, who knows, maybe we'll catch it together. Anyone else? Any remarks from the panel? I think we've been talking a lot about automated transport infrastructure. So great. Also, for the sake of time, I think we can go to our fourth pillar. And first, again, thank you, Pierre. Thanks so much for everything.
You're welcome.
You know what I'm talking about, for everything, for all these years. What is a resilient transport infrastructure? This is what it is for us.
In our vision, SMARTI will be resilient. Therefore, they will be conceived to adapt to the effects of climate change, to the impact of natural and human-induced hazards, with the aim of having self-repairing infrastructure offering perpetual services to users so that you won't miss that hug anymore.
Yes, we don't want to miss the hug, because infrastructure are a really important part of our society. And whatever we do, we really need to keep the services perpetual, because I can give you this anecdote. It's really small, but I was in the UK, and back in Sicily, a bridge collapsed. It was an highway. And this bridge is actually in an highway that connects Palermo and Catania, which are the two main cities of Sicily. Well, because of this bridge that collapsed, people needed to detour of 4 hours first, then 2 hours, and this lasts for 4 years. So we have a network that was evidently, it was an evidence that it wasn't designed to cope with a little part of its network. Yes, a little branch, a little arch that was not providing the service that we wanted to have. So we do need to have the network that is resilient, but also using resilient components, resilient material. We want something that adapts, also because of what we have seen earlier on. No, we want something multifunctional, and at the end, the infrastructure has to adapt to give us the service. The same for automated and sustainable. So resilient is another important aspect, and also thanks to the fellows, but a lot thanks to the work with Henry, which is here with us, and Chiara, we came up with this roadmap that has 3 goals, as you can see there, and I would like possibly Henry to give us an overview. Henry, will you?
Davide, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Clear.
Yes, when we were looking at this, we did an extensive literature review, and just to maybe reiterate what you've been saying in some way, we found that transport systems, they're increasingly being subjected to bare capacities far greater than what they've been designed for, and they are stressing beyond their design lives, and this was exacerbated by natural and human-induced hazards, and that is the reason why it's now very important that we factor in resilience. But we also found that there is a varied understanding of these things. For instance, when you talk about natural hazards, if you look at works of different people, whether it's in the US or some studies in Russia, so many things we looked at, people define the same thing in different ways. And the reason for that we found was there is sort of, because the problems are localized, and because they are localized, then people try and find solutions for their local problems. So in that regard, it was increasingly difficult to find an agreement where there is a framework which can be applied across the board. So that is one of the challenges we face. Now, more to that, we also faced, we realized that there isn't, at the moment, the key decision makers who are responsible for providing the infrastructure, they haven't fully appreciated the need for resilience. And because of that, funding is still lackluster. There isn't enough money going in to actually address the problem. So those were some of the issues we come across. And then again, like for instance, where we're talking about the goals here, we're talking about a perpetual service. We're saying we need to make sure that the infrastructure works for everybody. I think that there are many cases where the appreciation of who should benefit is not equitable, but we're talking about everybody who accesses the infrastructure to benefit. Because sometimes, if you, for instance, you only target infrastructure that works for commercial vehicles or maybe just for motorized vehicles, then that's not what we're saying. We're saying everybody, whether they are pedestrians or cyclists, should be able to benefit from this infrastructure and have access to the critical services, especially things like hospitals and schools. So that's the whole idea. And when we basically put all those things together, and that's how we came up with these stepping stones. And I wouldn't really want to labor these points so much, but maybe just pick out a few points. We need to define what the critical infrastructure is, and then be able to integrate, the resilience decision making in our practices. So those were some of the issues we found to be important, because unless we have this a generally agreed definition of criticality and then defining the matrices which are going to be used, then it becomes difficult. It's just a wild west kind of approach, which is not basically giving us any breakthroughs for what we're doing. And we also found that because of that lack of appreciation, we need to have policies that are being put in place, and that has to be really at the strategic level, at the high level, and to help with driving the agenda. Without that, it's very difficult to push from our side to try and get infrastructures resilient. So we need policies to help us with that. And then we also thought institutionalizing adaptation practices as part of design guides. So obviously, what the standards we've been following are not, they were not properly tailored for resilience. So you'll find that we had, in fact, a project in Ethiopia. This was to do with low volume roads, but we had to go and revise the design standards so that we cover resilience. So it might be a case that this has to be reviewed across the board, because it seems to be that has not yet been encapsulated in the current design standards, at least not widely, as far as the literature we looked at was suggesting. So just some of the stepping stones. Of course, everybody who would be interested in getting to know the details can read everything there. But eventually, if we follow those few steps, we should, end up with what we are calling a vision at the extreme right of the map itself. And what we expect is to have investment decisions that are based on reliable data and less dictated by the economic status or social factors. Because at the moment, investment decisions, you find that it's just, does it make economic sense? Do we cover the social aspects? We need to go beyond that. That's what we're saying. And we're saying we need to have infrastructure delivery that is more efficient and effective, if that's the vision for 2030. And then, of course, land use planning has to be integrated and in a way that we take care, we're taking account of climate change impacts. And we also thought about multimodal transport systems, should be optimized to be more reliable, because at the moment they are not. Obviously, you did mention that bridge you talked about, which fell apart, and then for the longest time, 4 years is an extremely long time. But if we are planning properly and we do all these things, then we should probably be having redundancies maybe built into systems, or at least have mechanisms of getting the infrastructure to respond faster and avoid those catastrophes of 4 years. So yes, that was kind of the approach we took with doing this. But most key thing is people are doing. They think, you think they're doing this, they are attacking the same problem, but the approach is different, and there is no consistency of course, in terms of an agreement of how should we tackle things. The metrics are different, and there are no policies in place. I think those are the key takeaways in my opinion, if anybody didn't want to delve into the nook and cranny of everything. Thanks, Davide.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you. Thanks so much. I do have some remark on that, because I would like to add something. But since the Brazilian roadmap is quite it's something that actually embraces also the other roadmap that we've seen. Is there anyone else on the panel that wanted to have some remark? I don't know whether you've seen this roadmap before. Well, while you possibly have a look, I just wanted to underline how actually was important this project to arrive to this. We could develop this because we had a platform where we could talk. We all do our jobs on different projects. Henry is working for a consultancy that works in developing countries to increase the wealth through engineering. And Emmanuel, Pierre, Nicholas from Università Gustave Eiffel, and in Nottingham, now University of Palermo, and really different background, possibly similar view of what is to be the future. But thanks to this platform, and thanks to developing projects through growing some fellows, we could actually talk about this issue. And now it's really a moment where we could share. Really, I think the main aim of a researcher is to share, and this is what we're trying to do. And I'm pretty happy, in particular, to, for instance, talk on how important was the project of Philippe. It was the last one of the last session, because Philippe, once we started that project, we realized that there was not a real resilience assessment for a network, for a road network. We really never seen someone that actually look at the network and say, look, if this arm this arch is going to be broken, what do we do? How do we ensure that, that hug, that perpetual service? And I think that any network should have that type of operation. That's why I think it's the first point in as a stepping stone for this specific goal. So just this remark. Anyone else?
Yes, Davide?
Emmanuel.
I would like just to add something. So, you know that the GIEC report about resilience has been published 2 weeks ago.
Ah, great.
So I think now it will be necessary to cross this report with this roadmap.
Right.
We still have some work to do.
Absolutely. Well, I think we are pretty.
The GIEC is in French, but I think in English is IPCC.
Ah, IPCC, exactly. I was
sorry, the IPCC report.
Yeah. Okay. I'll have a look at that. But yeah, perfect. I mean, I think we are pretty lucky that we can actually work on this thing.
And there is I think there is a chapter on infrastructure.
Okay, great. If you have a link, Emmanuel, maybe you can put it in the chat just for everyone, because we're gonna share the chat together.
Okay, I will try to find it in English.
If you find it, otherwise. Thanks for your remark, Emmanuel. Well, we are 10 minutes late already, so this was the last pillar, but really we did something a little bit more because SMARTI was done for Europe, but also we wanted to try to share our results with developing countries, because we live in the same planet, and it doesn't make sense if we do something sustainable just for Europe and we forget about those countries that possibly don't have the same opportunity to stay together, think about doing research for a better planet. So we are privileged to do that, and I think it was part of our duty to try and share something with them. And thanks to professionals like Henry, again, that work with us to do that, I think we found some very, very key points, and possibly something that can be already shared and implemented in those countries. Henry, would you like to give us another overview of this?
Yeah, thanks Davide. Sorry, I'm still going echoes. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can. You can.
Right.
Go.
Okay. The situation in developing countries, I would say, on a general level, is the same, because the bottom line is networks are increasingly being exposed to both human-induced and natural hazards. But I think what stands out in developing countries was mainly the understanding of, for instance, SMARTI is far widely, it hasn't even started because people are struggling to just have a network that actually works. We are still talking about, for instance, all-weather roads as a problem. Whereas if you're in the developed country setup, we're way past that. We have roads, they are tarmacked, and so we are talking about different things. But so because of that, what we were thinking, obviously, there's got to be fast learning. The pace of learning will have to be really fast in developing countries because obviously the developed world is far ahead, and yet what we have done extensively, what the fellows and everything else this project has done was mainly tailored to the developed side. So there was we found that there is a massive gap in terms of just an understanding of SMART in developing countries. And for that reason, it was a goal we thought that has to be pursued to bring about, to fast track that understanding. And obviously, because of that, as I've explained, the infrastructure is far less inferior to what we have in the developed world. The response when it comes to when they are hit with challenges, and this could be things like mudslides, or you have many earthquakes, for instance, and you also, for instance, in Ethiopia, there's a lot of movement of the network, and the Rift Valley areas in Africa, all those places. So the network there is far less resilient, I should say, compared to the developed world, and so again, it becomes a goal of decision makers there. How can they quickly make their networks resilient in the context of the available resources, which we admit are much less compared to the developed world? They have to do something because they're increasingly being taken out by the changes we're seeing. Floods, for instance, they will come and wipe out sections of roads, and so that is a key goal of any road authority or road owning entity in developing countries, to make sure they can do something with the meager resources they have. So that's why we went with that goal. And the last one we have there as number 3 was creating a body of knowledge, because we also found that the fact that there is little understanding and there hasn't been much going on in developing countries, there is hardly any information you can find anywhere, which is talking about resilience and a coordinated approach to making the infrastructure there resilient. So I feel, or we felt, I shouldn't say we felt there was a necessity to create that body of knowledge. And in fact, for developing countries, it might have to be done at a regional level. So for instance, you could have the South African bloc, say, with countries in sub-Saharan Africa doing something as a bloc, because it is easier if they share knowledge, as opposed to probably in countries like the United Kingdom or France, or we could take on solutions on a national level in the developer. But I think we found that in developing countries, you might find that they'll have to organize themselves in a regional kind of bloc to build that body of knowledge, which of course will entail so many of these things we've been talking about, and a better understanding of materials, of what can we use, for instance, to recycle, all those things. So that's what we are talking about, and that is in a nutshell the situation in developing countries. Big information gap, a big gap in understanding of SMARTI, and a lack of the body of knowledge which will support driving these things. And of course, the stepping stones we came up with are in support of those things I've just mentioned.
Henry, I really secretly hold the desire of just going in one of these places where you work, and we can actually show what we've done. Just to establish the body of knowledge and make people not only aware, but actually to stimulate the willingness to know more. and yeah, and possibly to help. So really, thanks so much for your help, Henry, and to ITT and to Andy as well. I think this was a great way to close SMARTI, also to share with those who actually can sometime intervene much better than us, because we are kind of old countries. They are sometimes younger than us. So again, thank you. And I think that we are quite beyond what was the schedule. So I will ask anyone on the panel if there is any remark on what Henry showed us, or any remark at all. And while you think about that, I really would like to sincerely thank everyone that was involved since day one, and to everyone that was present at 10 to 6 Central European Time as attendant in the last 5 years. It was an amazing journey, and really, really proud of what we did. Okay, seems there is no remark.
No remark, but a very interesting work on a developing country, and I think we need to discuss more about it. And it's very, very interesting. Yes.
It's the first time that we show it, and we thought about doing it in this event. But hopefully, we can keep on going and show it to other people, or developing more. As you know, you just show us, Emmanuel, another report from the LPCC, and maybe this is something that can be developed further with some other project, possibly with collaboration of Henry.
Yeah, I'll be certainly grateful if developing countries can be thought about more in terms of what can be done, because the networks there, when they fail, the devastation is always extensive. The impact on people's welfare has always been extensive. So it will be really good to get this sort of discussion in the right forums, just to help, to help out with networks which are far below the demand that is currently available. So yeah, I'll be grateful, and I'll be ready to get involved in any form of initiatives to try and promote this.
And same for you, Henry. Please let us know if there is anything to create a formal consortium to do that. Maybe you are much more aware than us. So let's be in touch, because I think we should bring this further and to some other places.
I don't know if Pierre is aware of this work, but I think Pierre could be very interested by this work. The World Pierre Association.
Ah, Pierre. No. Well, no, this is the first time we show it. So, because you know, we live in an environment where it's publish or perish. No, we were waiting to actually publish that, to make them available to everyone.
Good.
But if Pierre is interested, anyone here, you know, this session is being recorded, we'll be happy to share them already. But good call, Emmanuel.
I don't know if Pierre is involved in Pierre, but Thierry Sedran is strongly involved in Pierre.
All right.
I will speak about this.
Great. Thank you, Emmanuel. Right, guys, I think it's time to acknowledge the European Commission, because they gave us all the funding, which is not marginal. It was a €4 million project over 5 years and a great support over the whole years. So a big thanks go to them that allow us to do all this. And again, thank you very much for being here. And I hope we can continue somehow. Thank you, everyone. You see actually the camera.
So Davide, thank you very much for this amazing management of this project.
It's shared, you know. It's shared.
Yes.
It's shared.
And thanks also to Chiara for the organization of this event. And we have lots of people to thank, you know.
Oh, I know. But you just anticipated me because I was going to close with thanking the people that now are in Palermo and organize this with me, which is Chiara, Gaspare, Silvia, Osman, Patricia, and Gabriella. Because we together, we actually just form a new lab, which is called SMARTI Lab. Because what we would like to do is being a laboratory to create solutions, smart solutions for sustainable transport infrastructures. So thanks to all of you, but really thanks also to them that are going to continue this job.
Thanks.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.